You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Time to sharpen those swords. You're listening to Sabres Semantics, a hard-hitting interview and discussion show featuring players, alumni, media, and all others who have or still cover the NHL's Buffalo Sabres. With interesting stories from the past and current objective analysis, this show is sure to provide an entertaining and unique perspective for both Sabres and hockey fans alike.
Oh, brother, we are not worthy!
Exclusively on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Now, here's your host of Sabres Semantics, Brandon Caputo.
Welcome into another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Proudly brought to you by J&L Flooring. If you think you get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack. Contact our Niagara Falls location. Be in your quality flooring project today. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broder with you to discuss the Sabres' first, half of the year, All-Star Break. That's where we're at right now for this team, and just going into, general thoughts on the outlook of the rest of the year. Going into the trade deadline, we got some fan polls as well. We've got what the last line was, their last game against San Jose. The upcoming games we'll discuss, and the standings where they kind of sit with everything. But thank you to those today watching on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, smash that bell for all updates on video versions of our podcast that get released here on the network. And thank you to those today listening on all of our on-demand audio platforms. Make sure to give us a follow at Sabres Semantics on Twitter. That's where we have all of our polls and everything for the show. And as well, we're available on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our YouTube channel that we're trying to post more small content on as well. So before we get into that, Austin, I want to give a quick plug to our friends over at Fubo. Watch the Sabres games all year long on Fubo TV. Our exclusive link for your 14-day free trial is in the description below of this video, and all Sabres games, as long as they're not nationally televised, are available on Fubo TV with our exclusive link, and you get a 14-day free trial with that. So with that said, Austin, let's get into the show here. And the Sabres, as we speak, go into the All-Star break, sitting at 22, 23, and 4 for 48 points. Again, they just came off that California road trip, so I guess mixed results there. They lost the first game in Anaheim, and you thought, oh boy, here we go. But then they ended up beating the Kings. They came back to beat the Sharks after being down 2-0. But I know they don't really impress you yet, but they've salvaged, staying in this thing as we hit the All-Star break.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said in our first podcast of the new year that they were going to have to win 8 games in January for me to even consider being invested in a potential run. They only won 7. But relatively speaking, I know the schedule wasn't the best, but January was a successful month results-wise. 7 wins in the month, 6-4 in their last 10. But unfortunately, just every game in that Western trip, I know they came back in the last 2, but every game you were down multiple goals. It's been a trend all year. You're down. You consistently give up the first goal, but not only that, when you give up the first goal in the first period, you consistently go down multiple goals. Just not a recipe for success. Thankfully, LA is reeling. San Jose is not good. Honestly, they probably could have came back against Anaheim too, because Anaheim wasn't good, but that Anaheim game was an absolute disaster. But results-wise, hey, you get 2 out of 3 in the Western trip. Kind of hard to be salty, but the way they got there, it's not sustainable style of play, and hopefully this All-Star break will allow some players on that team and the coaching staff to kind of mentally regroup and start attacking this thing and playing the way that they should be playing, because we know they're capable of playing better hockey than they have been playing.
And it's crazy, the last 7 minutes they decided to play in Anaheim, and they almost got a point out of it. They scored 2 goals, almost had a chance to tie it, but the first 53 minutes of the game was an absolute joke, and I don't know how this team can continually play great for a little stretch of the game. They can't put it together for 60 minutes, and I think that's the story.
Yeah, not only the story is that they can't put it together for 60 minutes, but like I was saying, it's usually the first 15 to 20 minutes that's an absolute disaster, and then they start playing. And I don't know, like, again, some of that has to fall on the players because, like, you guys are NHL players. You know what time the game starts. You know you're supposed to go from the jump. But, like, I don't know what's going on in that coaching room. But, so like I said, something has to change. Hopefully they use this break because, they got a little bit of an early start on this break being done after Saturday. So hopefully they use this break to kind of just mentally regroup and start figuring it out because we know that the talent, I mean, I know we'll talk about it later. Jack Quinn's back on the injury list, which sucks for the Sabres because he's vital to this team. But we know that talent-wise they are better than this. So I don't know. Something's got to start clicking. And, I mean, honestly, their 5-on-5 game for the last little while actually hasn't been that bad. Their special teams has been killing them. And when your power play sucks, your penalty kill is not great. And not to mention you are a pretty heavily penalized team. It's just, like I said, it's just not a recipe for disaster. Or it's not a recipe for success. It is a recipe for disaster, especially when you're consistently going down multiple goals in the first period.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I look at this team and I just say, like, something's missing. We'll get into it with the polls and everything. But like you said, it's almost like somebody's got to take the fall for this season. But is Kevin Adams going to make a move coaching-wise or with a trade? And that's something that we've seen in the past that he's just not willing to do. He's willing to bet on, what we saw last year. And again, while that was positive, we're in a new year now and we're at the All-Star break and this team is pretty buried in the standings. I mean, they're still technically in it if you want to say that. But, what the expectations were, the high expectations going into this year that they were going to be a playoff team. And right now they're tied with the Montreal Canadiens, who are in a complete rebuild and are fine with that.
Yeah, like I said, like you said, they had a successful season last year, but as we all know, it's a what have you done for me lately league, as is every other sport. And this year the Sabres haven't been good. I fear that Adams will not make a move because, and again, this is strictly my opinion. I feel like the injury excuse might rear its head because, yes, you have lost Jack Quinn for a long time this year. He's vital. Tage was out for a while. Cousins was hurt for a while. Tuck was out for a while. Skinner was out for a while. But injuries shouldn't be an excuse for this team. The GM, like I said, I gave him credit for it. He was patient. He was going to bank on internal growth. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened at the rate that they wanted it to. Again, maybe there is a run in these last 33 games of the season, but I severely doubt it. Hopefully, Adams has learned from it and realizes, like, hey, to get over that hump, I have to be aggressive and build this team out properly. Like, there are some question marks on this team that will have to be answered between now and the trade deadline. Obviously, results will completely determine what their approach is, but there are players like Eric Johnson, Zemgus Girgensons, your captain, Kyle Oposo. There are players that are, if you're not in it, shouldn't be here, because if you're not in it, you should be looking at young guys to see what can and who can make an impact next year and what and who can be used as assets to try and obtain whatever piece you think is missing.
And, I mean, you look at, we talk about it all the time with their assets, and they've got a lot of talent, in Rochester and throughout their organization, which is a great thing. And they've got all their draft picks. They've even got an extra fourth in 2025. But at some point, you're going to have to turn some of this stuff into guys that you need and in positions of need, because all these prospects are great, and we keep saying this, but if there's a need, like let's say they need a goaltender or a top 4D, these are the moves that Kevin Adams is going to have to make, the hard decisions that when you're the Sabres and you have all this depth right now, you can afford to do that. I could understand if he was hesitant if the Sabres only had, one or two good prospects within their system that had value around the league, but this is one of the deepest prospect pools in the National Hockey League, and we've seen what other teams have done with that have gone on to win championships or be contenders when they've been able to use those assets to move and get what they need to get over that hump. And the Sabres, for the last 13 years, I feel like we've just cared about draft picks and prospects, and that's great, but at some point you've got to turn it around the other way.
Yeah, like I said, I think Adams did a very good job with restocking the prospect cupboard and setting the foundation for this team. Now it's time to see if he can do the next step, which is building a contending roster. And again, this is future podcasts discussions, whether it's probably not a trade deadline discussion, it's probably more of an offseason discussion, but he has a very difficult decision on what to do with Casey Mittelstadt, a pending restricted free agent, one of their best 5-on-5 players. But guess what? For those who clamoring for change in their forward group, that's the guy that is the most likely to be moved. You're not moving Tage Thompson. You're not moving Dylan Cousins. They're just starting their contract extensions. You're not moving Peterka or Quinn unless you get blown away by an offer. You're not moving Skinner because you just can't. And Tuck, he's an extremely valuable member to this team. He's Kevin Adams' biggest trade acquisition. So in the top 9, who's the most likely, you know what I mean? It's Mittelstadt. He needs a contract. I know he's a very good player, but that's a player they're going to have to make a decision on. Again, that decision does not have to be made until the summer. But if they sign Mittelstadt, we're looking at almost, aside from Greenway going down to the 4th line, which is probably where he'll be next year and probably where he belongs, but aside from that, if Mittelstadt is re-signed, your top 9 is virtually the same next year. Is that something, like, do we want to be sitting there in, October when the season starts with the same exact forward group? No. And as much as I like Mittelstadt, he's their best 5-on-5 producer. He seems like the most likely one to move out. And again, this is a future podcast problem, but that's what I'm saying. Like, Adams has a lot of decisions to make. Same thing with the prospects. You and I have talked about it a lot. They're not all going to be able to play in Buffalo. Again, for the same thing that I just said, their top 6 for the next at least 3 years is pretty much locked down. So, yeah, I wish Adams, again, I was all for, running it back and looking for internal growth, but, we're 50 games into the season and it hasn't worked. So that's why my opinion is different now, is you got to do something. You have to change something, whether it's, I know it's easier to change the coach, which is why I've kind of been advocating for that. As much as I love Don Granato, he's a very good developmental coach. I don't think the Sabres need a developmental coach right now. But I tell you what, if Don Granato is the coach next year, I have no problem with it. He better have a whole new staff under him. All the assistants better be fired, and he better have a fresh start. Because there's no way you can run it back. There's just not. And like I said, barring a miracle run for these last 33 games, which I don't expect them to be, this team has really not done anything to give anyone any faith that they can go on a run here. We're looking at another wasted season. Yeah. I don't know what your thoughts are, but
I mean, they just came off their easiest schedule, part of the schedule of the season in the month of January. You talk about how many winnable games there were there. They played Chicago twice. They played San Jose twice. They played Anaheim twice. Yep. Like, these are all the bottom feeder teams. Montreal they played. So, like, they came out of this looking decent, but again, it was against the easiest opponents that they're going to face all season. Now they're going to start to get into the heart of their season. And I'm with you. If they come back with the exact same top 9 forwards and the exact same coaching staff, then I really question if Kevin Adams is the right guy for this job, and he'll end up being the one on the hot seat if he doesn't want to make a move with somebody on the forward group or with the coaching staff.
Yeah, and I will say, don't get me wrong, January was very clearly their easiest month. Looking ahead at the future, February it's not as nearly as easy as January, but aside from 2 games against Florida, you got Dallas and Calgary mixed in there. St. Louis, LA, who's reeling, Minnesota, who's reeling. We're talking about Anaheim again, Montreal again, Columbus again is in there. Looking ahead at March, Vegas, Winnipeg, but you have Detroit twice, the Predators, Seattle, Ottawa, New Jersey. These the schedule is not nearly as hard. But with this team, we just talked about how easy January was supposed to be, and there was a few games that they probably should have won that they didn't. That's the problem with this team, is even with softer parts in the schedule, there's no reason to believe that this team can go on a run until they actually do it, which, I mean, again, if they actually do it, we'll have a completely different conversation. But based off what we've seen so far, I don't know. I don't see a run coming. Especially without Quinn. He was in the 17 games that he's played, that's probably not the only reason, but he's a big reason why their 5-on-5 play really skyrocketed, because they were able to roll out 3 quality lines. Now, obviously, it's the All-Star break. Rochester plays for the next 2 weeks, so I have no idea what their plan to replace Quinn is, but I can tell you what, if their strategy to replace Quinn is let's just slot Victor Olofsson in the lineup, instead of giving a guy like Yuri Kulich, Isaac Rosen, literally anyone else from Rochester, if they don't give one of those guys a shot and they slot Victor Olofsson in, there's no reason to take this this team seriously.
Couldn't say it.
Or make a trade.
Yeah.
If they go out and make a trade, like that would also be obviously a reason to take them seriously. But if their plan is to slot in Victor Olofsson, like, sorry, you're giving up on the season.
We've already tried that. Like, we've already seen that fail miserably. So it is. I feel like we have this conversation every time we open the show, but it's just like people need to like realize where we're at right now. And this is like, again, we want to see the team do well, but these are the things that we have to say as, you know, an objective show here, that we look at the good and the bad and some of the ugly that's gone on, and it's just the reality of where they are right now. And if they don't see this own reality, then I'd question, you know, really, do they have the right people in here?
Yeah, the reason we have the same conversation is because nothing has changed, right? Like, realistically, nothing has changed. Like, when they didn't acquire someone when Quinn went down in the summer. Okay, fair enough. Zach Benson stepped up. Cool. It didn't work. It wasn't working until, like, they did nothing to try and make a move. Now, Quinn came back. They looked good for the 17 games that he came back. Cool. Understandable. He's now gone for 8 weeks. Are you just going to spin your wheels for 8 weeks? Or are you going to do something about it? If you make a move, awesome. If you call up Yuri Kulich or Isaac Rosen, awesome. But if you call one of those two guys up, they better get the same opportunity that Jack Quinn was afforded, because otherwise, what are we doing here? I don't need to see 7 more games of Isaac Rosen playing on the 4th line, 3rd line, getting 6 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time. So really, like I said, I'll be very interested to see what they do with that spot. I know, like, we won't know until they start practicing again, but I tell you what, like, I better not see Victor Olofsson on the second line.
We will have to do a wellness check on Austin if we see Victor Olofsson on line 2 when the Sabres return from the All-Star break to practice. But Austin, let's take a look at the lines real quick of what it was in the game in San Jose before they hit the break. They had Skinner, Thompson, and Kyle Opozo up there. Again, like, it is what it is. Second line, Zach Benson, Dylan Cousins, J.J. Paterka, Jordan Greenway, Casey Mittelstadt, Alex Tuch, and then Peyton Krebs and Eric Robinson. 1 forward spot's missing there because Jack Quinn obviously was injured in the San Jose game. I can appreciate Don Granato trying to switch things up and try to get some depth and some scoring throughout the top 3 lines, but I don't know if that exactly... I mean, it was San Jose, so, I mean, take it with a grain of salt there. They did win the game, but what did you think of the way that he kind of structured that line, the forward group there?
I don't know, throwing something at the wall, hoping it sticks, right? Like, his lineup decisions have been somewhat of a question mark for me all year. It's just been well documented. If you listen to this podcast or if you follow me on Twitter, like, at all, like, I've questioned a lot of Granato's lineup making decisions. The LA game, I know they won 5-3, but even something so dumb as like pulling Benson out there, questionable in my opinion, but whatever. The only thing that's been consistent really is that J.J. Paterka has been with Cousins. Krebs has been down on that 4th line with Robinson. Like, it's... I guess Tage is usually with Skinner when Skinner's healthy, which is good. I do like those two together, but... I mean, it worked, but like you said, it was the San Jose Sharks, and you were down 2-0 to that team. So, like, I don't know. The lineup is the lineup. I'm interested to see what it'll, like I said, I'm interested to see what it'll be when the All-Star break ends, because now they have to make some strange lineup decisions because Jack Quinn is out once again. And by all accounts, they don't really have faith in Victor Olofsson because he's not an everyday player. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do and what they cook up here.
Moving to the defense, you've got Jacob Bryson and Rasmus Dahlin on the first pair. Owen Power, Henry Okiharju, and then Ryan Johnson and Connor Clifton, with Matthias Samuelsson still out of the lineup. Your boy Ryan Johnson getting in the lineup over Eric Johnson, who you've been very critical of on this podcast throughout the last little bit here. Seeing Bryson up on that top pair, what are you thinking with that?
Again, I think it's more just he threw everything in a blender and was trying to get some stuff to stick. I do like that second pair. I think he says Power, Jokiharju. I do like them. I think they are pretty good together. Dahlin, whenever he's not with Samuelsson, I think he does well, and that's not a shot at Samuelsson. I do think Samuelsson is a very serviceable NHL defenseman. I am, like I've said multiple times, I'm just adamant that him and Samuelsson do not work together. I know Bryson getting up on that pair with him was a big deal, but let's be honest, when push comes to shove, when it's time to, defend the lead or come back like they were in that game, he wasn't going to rely on Bryson. He was going to start relying on Power, Jokiharju, which I think you saw in that game. So good for Bryson. He's the 7th defenseman, 8th defenseman, I guess, because Ryan Johnson would technically be the 7th, but I guess it's good to have some depth, and it's good to see Bryson get in there because, you know what I mean? Like, he can be fun to watch sometimes when he gets the puck on his stick and he gets going, but same thing. He's another player that I don't need to see anymore. I know he's up here because of injuries, Samuelsson being banged up, Erik Johnson being banged up probably doesn't help either, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's just I'm out on Granato, so anything that he does, I'm really going to be highly skeptical of. And again, not that I don't like Don Granato, I do. I think he was very good for this team. There's a reason that you saw Tage take a step was because of him. He finally let Dahlin out of his, the chains that were on him before he took over. But at some point, like, the team, I'm not saying the team is done with him. The team, I think, does respect him. But when you go down 1-2-0 consistently in the first period, like, something's got to change.
He's got you to a certain point, but now you need to break through the plateau. Just like, your workout routine, you get to a certain point, it's just the same thing over and over again, and you got to do something to break that and reach the next level. And I feel like they've kind of plateaued here with the way Don Granato has done a good job, like you mentioned, getting this team turned around. But now it's almost like he's reached his peak of where he can take this team, and now they need to find the person to get them up the next part of the ladder.
Like I said, if he's here next year, I will not have a big problem with it. But if he's here next year, all those assistants better be gone, and he better have a brand new staff underneath him, because you can't run it back. You can't. It didn't work. I was hopeful that it was going to work. I bought into the fact that it was going to work. It didn't. It hasn't. It's not going to work. Changes need to be made.
Well, we'll move on to the power play real quick. And, what have you thought of that? Talk Cousins, Skinner, Thompson, Dahlin, the 4 forwards. And we talked, I think, on our last episode about, not just being so one-dimensional, trying to hit Tage for the one-timer, which obviously his wrist is still not 100% because we haven't seen the goal production from Tage that we saw last year and even before the injury. But, what have you seen from the power play? Good, bad, and where are you at with it?
You saw improvements, obviously. I think you started to see them trying a few different things, working the puck high to low, Tage moving the puck around rather than just standing still and being there for the shot. It's still killing them. It's still very vanilla, very predictable, very disjointed, still lacking a little bit of that intent. But I have seen a little bit of improvements. Again, how much of that is the teams that they face, though? Like, when you know what I mean? When you're facing San Jose twice, you have Chicago on that. Like, it's hard. Is it the strategy? Is it the fact that your competition's so bad that you just look better? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The results have been better, which I guess is a good thing, but it's still a very, very, very big Achilles heel for this team right now.
Yeah, and LA has been one of the worst teams in the NHL the last month or so, which is crazy because they were on such a good run, and now they've kind of just hit a wall here with their goaltending situation. So I even look at that game and say, I don't even look at it as a great win, to be honest with you, because LA, 1, has been struggling, and 2, the first period was a complete joke, and they were lucky they weren't out of that game after the first 20 minutes.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the last 2 games that they won, I know they won, but like, you can't keep going down 2-0 in the first period. You can't. A serious playoff team does not get down early, and does not get down early by multiple goals as much as the Sabres do, because they do it pretty much not more than any other team, but more than any team that has playoff aspirations does, that's for sure.
Anything else you want to mention to that before we hit the break and get to the polls and stuff in the second segment?
No, I think it's time to move on, and like I said, at least with some fan discussion, we can at least have some other stuff to talk about, because you know me, this team has been driving me crazy.
We're going to take a break on Sabres Semantics today, and we're going to come back. We're going to get the fan polls. We're going to get Austin's analytics, and we'll look at the upcoming games when the team does come back from the All-Star break. So stay right here, right back on Sabres Semantics, right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, proudly brought to you by J&L Flooring.
Last year, more homes canceled cable TV than ever before. Why? It's just too expensive. For half the price of cable, you can get Fubo TV and watch the live sports and TV you love. Try free at FuboTV.com.
J&L Flooring is Niagara's specialty flooring and design company. They take great pride and provide elite customer service and support. With a beautiful showroom, great pricing, and a wide variety of truly unique products, J&L Flooring is your specialty flooring and decor boutique shop. All of their products are environmentally friendly and responsibly produced so you can feel good about your flooring choices. Their goal is to build authentic relationships based on honesty and integrity that they foster with respect and authenticity. Offering a unique and wide range of quality products presented by a knowledgeable and patient team, they simplify the process to make your life easier and to make your home more beautiful. Visit them at 4424 Montrose Road in Niagara Falls or find out more at jnlflooring.com. If you think you can get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack at J&L Flooring. Pets bring immense joy to our homes, becoming an integral part of our families. But this living, loving experience often requires a little extra care and attention. That's where Global Pet Foods comes in, with owners and staff ready to support you every step of the way. Check out one of their locations today: 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, or 400 Scott Street and 344 Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family. Proud show sponsor of the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of the Niagara Ice Dogs. Are you looking to hire? Let the Niagara Employment Help Center save you valuable time and money by making your hiring process easier. Their services include free job postings in-house and on their website, fill job vacancies quickly and efficiently, access to a bank of potential employees, reduce employment costs, and financial incentives may be available to offset the cost of new hire training. Check out the website at ehc.on.ca or call 905-358-0021 for more information. The Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work since 1983.
Niagara Golf Lounge features 2 state-of-the-art indoor golf simulators, allowing you to play some of the world's best courses all year round. The perfect place to indulge all season long. Don't worry about getting thirsty while you play around with your friends. Their fully stocked bar offers a wide selection of drinks, appetizers, and a variety of meals are also available to enjoy before, during, or after you play. Grab a seat next to the fire in their comfortable sports lounge. Didn't bring your clubs? No problem. They have partnered with TaylorMade to offer you the best rental clubs. You won't want to miss their exclusive NFL and NHL giveaways for the Buffalo Sabres and Buffalo Bills. Located in the Best Western Plus Cairncroft Hotel, 6400 Lundy's Lane in Niagara Falls. Visit NiagaraGolfVacations.com to learn more and to reserve your golf bay today. The Niagara Golf Lounge, Niagara's home for golf and sport all year round.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Hey, hey, here we go, it's hockey night in Buffalo. Hey, hey, here we go, the boys in blue, white, and gold. Hey, hey, here we go, make some noise, get in the zone. All for one and one for all, let's hear you from your heart and soul. And we will stand, raising our hands, saying, let's go Buffalo, let's go Buffalo. We will be here till the end, saying, let's go Buffalo, let's go Buffalo.
Welcome back to part 2 of today's Sabres Semantics episode. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broder back with you. The Sabres Semantics show on our network is proudly brought to you by J&L Flooring. If you think you get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack. Contact our Niagara Falls location to be in your quality flooring project today. As well, go and check out one of our other great sponsors, Niagara Golf Lounge. They're doing Sabres giveaways throughout the season, and the remaining home games they're doing giveaways for. All you got to do is spend $40 at the Niagara Golf Lounge, have a drink, and hit some balls, watch some sports. $40 and you'll be entered in to win some Sabres tickets courtesy of the Niagara Golf Lounge. So, Austin, as we get forward here into the second segment, I will turn it over to you with what you're going to talk about with Austin Analytics, and then we'll kind of take that into the Jack Quinn discussion.
Yeah, basically just wanted to highlight the importance of Jack Quinn. He's only played 17 games, but leads the Sabres in expected goals for percentage besides JJ Peterka, which, I mean, they play on the same line, so it kind of speaks for itself there. Those two are very, very much in lockstep, but just it sucks. It sucks for Jack Quinn. I'm glad it's not, a repeat injury, because I know that's always the biggest scare when you see someone who just came back from an Achilles injury go down with a lower body injury. Yeah, it just sucks. Like, anybody who's watched the team this year knows how important he is. The numbers back it up. But two surgeries now in 7 months? No, when did he have the Achilles surgery? June?
Yep, in the summertime, June,
yeah,
July.
So two not pretty significant surgeries in a 7-month stretch for a 23-year-old. It sucks, and I wish him all the best, and I hope he gets better soon.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at Jack Quinn, approximately out 6 to 8 weeks, according to Lance Lasowski of the Buffalo News. He had the surgery, and again, when you saw the injury happen in San Jose, how it occurred, it was like, oh man, is this going to be another long-term injury? Luckily, he escaped that. I mean, 6 to 8 weeks is still not great, but could have been a lot worse. But like you mentioned, just really bad luck for a guy that was finally getting his footing back, had played, in 15 or so games for the Sabres, and talked to him in the room that one day that I was able to cover the Sabres game against the Kraken, and he was really excited to be back in the lineup. And I know Don Granato and the coaching staff said that he brought such a different dimension with the way that he attacks the net, and they were, finally getting into form with him, and now he's on the shelf again. Like you mentioned, they're going to have to figure out what they're going to plan is going to be for the trade deadline, because that's going to come up before he's back. So hopefully their plan is going to be more than having Victor Olofsson just slot in there, because Jack Quinn has shown that he's a valuable top 9 forward on this team, versatile, that can go up and down. So really unfortunate injury, but hopefully he does come back soon.
Yeah, like you said, hopefully he comes back soon. I think, I don't know, I wouldn't say safe to say that they avoided disaster, because 8 weeks is still a disaster, but thank God it's not a significant, year-long, 6-month injury. Excuse me. Did they say exactly what the injury was? I know they said it was lower body, but they never really specified, right?
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah, so like you said, it'll be interesting to see what they do to fill that spot, but it sucks. He's so vital to this team, not only for the offense that he brings, the way that he attacks the skating, but he's probably their, out of the top, I mean, maybe aside from Benson and Greenway, out of the top 9, he's probably their most reliable two-way forward. I mean, I don't know if that's a stretch to say. I know, in my opinion, that's what it is. He also provides an element to, he can play on the top power play when one of those big guys goes down. He was on the power play for a while before Skinner came back, and I think was part of that couple game stretch where I was like, man, the power play looks a lot better. Again, was it because of Jack Quinn? Was it because of who they were playing? Probably a mixture of both. But at the end of the day, he definitely doesn't make or break your season, but I feel pretty confident saying that unless they make a move or they call up someone and has an immediate impact, like you just said, if Victor Olofsson takes that slot, there's no positive impact from that. The season's pretty much done unless they make a move for a significant top 9, top 6 forward, or they call up a guy like Yuri Kulich and give him every opportunity to play and he exceeds. So yeah, it sucks, because when Jack Quinn came back, I was like, maybe this team has some juice. They did have some juice, but clearly just wasn't meant to be, and just an unfortunate injury. I actually didn't see it live. I had to wait for a clip to come out, and when I saw it, I was pretty fearful that it might have been an ACL. Thank God it was not, because I don't know if I could do another 8 to 10 months without Jack Quinn, because he is extremely important to this group.
And correction, he had played 17 games, 12 points in the 17 games. So, and again, he was working his way back up. He was getting up to speed, and you could just see him getting better and better when he was getting the opportunity. So again, that's the news with Jack Quinn. I got the player stats up on the screen right now, Austin, before we move to the polls. Mittelstadt's still continuing to lead this team, 42 points in 49 games. Rasmus Dahlin, second place, is going to be their All-Star representative this weekend in Toronto. But, is there anybody has played? I mean, I think Dylan Cousins has started to pick it up a little bit better. He's played better for my fantasy team, so that's one thing. But It's just we're still waiting to see from Tage Thompson. We'll get into it with the poll, but what have you thought lately about, I guess, in the last couple of weeks, somebody that's really sticking out to you?
I like Cousins has definitely started to play better. I don't think there's any getting around that. Like that's pretty obvious for anyone who watches it. Again, is Jack Quinn partially responsible for that? I do think so, because that line when they are clicking is very good. But just JJ Peterka again, he was in a little bit of a slump. I know when Quinn came back and was starting to produce, like Peterka had a little bit of a goalless drought, but just seeing him, how talented he is, the impact that he has on the game, I really think that production-wise, aside from Mittelstadt, he's probably been, well, he is their most consistent forward. I mean, again, a young guy like that taking a big step. We said like at the start of the year, if this team was going to be good, one of those guys, young guys, is going to have to take a big leap. Peterka's taken that big leap. It's just unfortunate that essentially 3 out of their top 4. It's kind of hard because Mittelstadt's taken a big leap too. But like 3 of your top 6 forwards have kind of not been up to par, and I think that's the biggest reason that this team is struggling. And I know it's frustrating because when we're going to talk about it in a couple minutes here, like there's a few guys in the top 6 that I know they aren't playing to the expectations that we had for them, but like I don't know. Tage Thompson, 14 goals, 14 assists, coming off a fractured wrist. Like he's starting to look a little bit more like himself, which might be good for the team going forward. Like for the rest of the year, obviously for the team going forward, it's good. It's just so hard to get optimistic about the rest of the year because I just don't see anything significant happening for the team results wise. But I will say definitely JJ Peterka, and production wise isn't there, but like I think Jordan Greenway has been really valuable for this team this year. He scored a big goal in the San Jose game. Does nothing special, nothing spectacular, but he does what he's asked to do, and he does it effectively. So I think I'll highlight those 2 guys because I think Peterka and Greenway deserve some shine right now.
So we'll get into the Twitter polls today, and guys, make sure you're following us at Sabres Semantics for all of our Sabres polls and our Sabres content on X, I guess Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, is on there. So if you guys want to get in the conversation when we do discuss these Twitter polls on the show, that's where you can find them. So the first poll this week was, who has been the biggest disappointment through the first half of the year for the Sabres? And as Austin just mentioned, Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins, Rasmus Dahlin, and Owen Power. Tage Thompson takes this poll with 60%, Cousins and Power with 20%, and Dahlin with 0%. But again, it's Thompson coming off a significant injury, a wrist, especially when you're a guy that takes a lot of one-timers. That's going to take a long time for you to get that same feeling back. So it's just unfortunate that kind of derailed this season from having 94 points the year prior.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that Thompson was the winner of this poll because he's actually still on pace for nearly 60 points over an 82-game season, which is obviously not spectacular because he scored 94 last year. But if you had told me that Tage was going to improve defensively and also still score at a 60-point pace while having a fractured wrist and missing some time due to another injury, like I would have been relatively okay with that. I'm a little bit surprised that Dylan Cousins didn't take this poll. Maybe it's a little bit of recency bias because he's played a lot better. But to me, the biggest disappointment so far this year has definitely been Cousins because I know, again, same thing. He had a little bit of injury problems here and there, but he's showed so much potential last year. Like 68 points in an 81-game season last year. I think when I compare him to Tage, 94 points for Tage to me was maybe like the ceiling, which is not a bad thing. Scoring 47 goals and getting 47 assists, being your ceiling is really good. I just didn't know how much more Tage was going to be able to get to. Like, in my opinion, I don't see, and I've never seen Tage as like a 120-point guy. I saw him more as like the 70, 75-point guy, which I still think he can be. Cousins hitting 68 points in his 3rd season. I expected another big leap to potentially get him to around a point per game player. And for me, he's just, a lot of it is shooting luck. A lot of it has been, been a little bit snake bitten. His shooting percentage is down nearly 6 percentage points compared to last year. So yeah, maybe a little bit of that is shooting luck. But to me, it was easily Cousins because he's a guy that you want to be able to take over games and drive your offense when your first line gets taken away, because when Tage, Skinner, and Tuck are together, if a team does find a way to negate that line, you need your other guys to step up. And I feel like those three guys have been negated way too often this year, and it just doesn't feel like enough people have stepped up. So to me, it was Cousins, but I mean, I can see why people have Thompson. It's just, as much as I love Tage Thompson, 94 points to me is kind of closer to his ceiling than it is him scratching the surface.
And you thought that Cousins would have a better chance of improving his point total than Thompson would.
Yeah, like 68 points for Cousins. I think maybe that is closer to his ceiling than I originally thought, but I think when you hit 68 points in your third year, there's still a little bit of room to grow, and it's just... But to be honest, like, who in the top 6 for this year for the Sabres hasn't regressed? And I think that is the biggest problem, because really it's been all 6 of them. Skinner might be the only one on par for a Skinner-type season that we're used to, because he's still scoring a ton of goals, so it's hard. I don't think there's a wrong choice to that poll. I am a little bit surprised that Cousins or Power didn't take control over that. I know I snuck Power's name in there because I just assumed Sabres Twitter was going to bash him, because that seems to be the popular thing to do.
Oh, yeah, it definitely has been. Poll 2, who has been the biggest pleasant surprise for the Sabres this season? JJ Peterka, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, Zach Benson, or Casey Mittelstadt? JJ Peterka takes this poll. That would have been my vote with the breakout season that he's had. I've just been really impressed with Peterka and the way that he's been able to score against some lower end talent, and the strength of schedule hasn't been there as of late. But I've really liked what I've seen from JJ Peterka. In his second full season in the NHL, I think he's really taken that next step to being a full-time player, and he's proven that he could be a top 6 player in this league. So I like Luukkonen and Benson, and Mittelstadt's been good, but personally I would have went with the consensus here with Peterka, which I think you might have a different opinion of.
Yeah, to me it's easily Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Peterka, fantastic. I'm glad he stepped up. He's playing extremely well. But if you would have told me that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen would have, aside from his 9-game stint in 2021-22, where he was 2-5-2, he had in his first full season as a backup, he had a sub 900 save percentage, well over he had a 3.61 goals against average. So this year, not only is he taking the reins as a starter, he's playing consistent. He's got a 2.61 goals against average, 908 save percentage. He's got 12 of the Sabres wins. But not only that, in his last 10 games, he's got a 933 save percentage. He is playing so consistently well. And if you would have told me that Luukkonen would be, trying to think of the word, the Sabres starter, I wouldn't have been so surprised. But not only is he the Sabres starter, but in a lot of metrics, he is in the top half of the league for goaltenders. I would be shocked, because I said at the start of the year in the training camp episode, until I see Luukkonen do it, I will not believe him. I'm seeing him doing it, and I'm starting to believe in him. And to me, him proving that he can be a quality NHL starter is a much bigger surprise to me than JJ Peterka being a top 6 quality forward, I think, because I had that faith in Peterka. So not surprised that Peterka won it, but I am surprised Luukkonen didn't run away with this poll, because I thought most people would be like me and be very surprised that he is a quality starting NHL goalie right now.
And quick side note there, Devin Levi did get sent down to Rochester. Eric Comrie is called back up. Do you think that's more so just to get Levi some action down at Rochester during the All-Star break, or do you think that when the Sabres come back that this is going to be a plan where they're going to have Comrie as the backup?
No, I have to imagine as soon as the All-Star break's done, Levi will come up. And the only reason I'm saying that is because they sent him down for that one game and then called him up to go out west. To me, it's just they're not keeping him down in Rochester. Side note, he is starting for the Amherst on Wednesday night, so he's at least getting some game action.
There you go. So, I mean, that's positive for him, and Eric Comrie, don't know what's going to go there. If he goes back through waivers, I'm not worried about him getting claimed. I don't think he will, but that is what that is. But we've talked about that enough on this show. Poll 3, which was basically a wash. What would you do with Casey Mittelstadt in the final year of his current contract? He's a restricted free agent, as Austin mentioned in the first half. Trade him, extend him. Well, 50% each, so there you go.
I mean, a little bit surprised, but not really, because I don't think there's a wrong answer.
And it's not because he's played bad. He's played well, and that's why you can move him.
Yeah, to me, the only reason you trade him is if you're one of those people that wants change in the forward group, like I highlighted earlier in this episode, is if you want change in the forward group, like significant change, that's the spot because everyone else is either locked up to a long-term deal or still on their entry-level deal. Mittelstadt is a pending RFA, having a career season and a half because dating back to last year, he's playing extremely well. Like you said, his value might never be higher, but also at the same time, he's been so reliable. You might want a Cousins, Tage, Mittelstadt center spine going forward, and that's fine if you do. It's just I'm just curious. Not only did what people think, although 50-50, kind of what I expected. I assumed some people would be in favor of it, some people would want to keep him. I don't know the answer to that. I just think it's such an interesting topic, and I think that might be the discussion point going forward because, like, if the Sabres are out of it and they have to sell, cool, Eric Johnson will be gone. Girgensons might finally get moved. If Oposo wants out, he won't be worth much on the market, but if Oposo wants out, you get to move him and open up some spots. But really, there's significant trade pieces, in my opinion, are Mittelstadt and Joki Harju. And to me, just obviously, it's clear Mittelstadt is so much more interesting because he is a significant piece for this team this year, but his future is uncertain. So I think that'll be more of a long-term conversation, but I was curious to see what people were thinking. And 50-50, I guess it sounds about right.
Yeah, and the way that he's playing, he could get them a significant haul. And you mentioned in the first segment just changing the forward group, the top nine, to look different. But this is a discussion we're going to have, I'm sure, for months on end and going into the offseason, because I feel like this might be something that we talk about leading up towards the draft, a draft night type of trade, or into the summer when he's going to be obviously extended for an extension either with Buffalo, sign and trade with a new team, or just trade to a new team and then they figure it out. But we'll have to see where it goes with Casey Mittelstadt. I don't expect this to be a trade deadline move. I'd be shocked if he was moved at the deadline. But with that said, Austin, let's take a look at the upcoming games for the Sabres here. They do come back on February 6th from the All-Star break to face the Dallas Stars at home. So they got a pretty good opponent there coming in with the Stars. And then they face the Blues also at home. It's actually a 4-game homestand there with Dallas, St. Louis, L.A., and Florida all coming to town there in the first week back. The programming note, the St. Louis game is an ESPN Plus exclusive, and I guess, that won't be shown on Fubo if you guys are carrying Fubo here in Southern Ontario. And then I assume we'll be recording by then, by the next episode, or by that Minnesota game, but Minnesota, Anaheim, Montreal. So like you mentioned, there are some winnable games there, but coming back from the break with Dallas, that's a pretty tough opponent there, team that can score. St. Louis is off and on. They don't really scare me. And then LA obviously has been reeling, but if they figure it out, they've definitely got the talent to turn it around. But a 4-game homestand out of the break, just coming off of the California road trip. 8 possible points there, Austin. I mean, what are we hoping for?
What are we hoping for? I mean, you have to get 6. You have to get 6 out of 8 points. Dallas, phenomenal team. Not only that, phenomenal on the road, 14-5-4 on the road. So that'll be a tough one to come out of the break too. As you said, St. Louis, they're a bit of a hot and cold team. Not that great on the road. You mentioned Minnesota. They are kind of in a similar spot to the Sabres, whereas I think expectations were pretty high for that team, but it's kind of been a disaster of a season. And then you mentioned LA, who's just reeling. I mean, I'm guessing by then they'll have maybe a new coach. I don't know. I don't know what LA is going to do because, like you said, they're a very talented team, but it has not been good for them lately. So 4 big home games out of the All-Star break, all against out-of-conference opponents. You want to make up some ground? This would be the time to start doing it. Do I expect that to happen? No. Like I said, you have to be shooting for... Or they got Florida in between there too, I guess, which is, again, a divisional opponent. Extremely tough.
Sam Reinhart, real quick. 20 power play goals. He's the first player since Mario Lemieux in 1995-96 to be at 20 power play goals by this point in the season. I cannot believe that I would ever say Mario Lemieux and Sam Reinhart in the same discussion, but he's got 20 power play goals for Florida. Just wanted to mention that, so...
Yeah, he deserves his flowers, man. You got to get 6 out of 8 there, and 2 of those 4 opponents are extremely tough, given Dallas and Florida. So you find a way to win one of those 2 tough games, preferably the Florida one because it's a divisional one. But also, it'd be nice to see you come out with a strong showing against Dallas because it's the first game out of the break, and then you have Dallas, and then you have a 3-day break before that St. Louis afternoon game. So, I don't know. You get 6 out of 8, maybe you can get some people back on board, but I think at minimum you have to win 3 out of 4.
And Victor Olofsson's going to be slotted in that third line, I'm sure. But
we'll give Austin a stroke. Might cease to exist.
Yeah, Austin might have a stroke before our next episode. But just lineup, final thoughts, Austin. I'll give it to you. Not with the lineup, with the standings. Excuse me, where they're at right now, and I know you've been out of it on this team, but technically they're still in it, so we have to still stand and watch at this point.
Like I said, you're 9 points back of Detroit, who Wednesday night is playing against the Ottawa Senators. So, I mean, you could be 10 points out by the time that game's over if the result kind of goes as most people would expect. It's not impossible, but it's definitely not looking good. You're hovering right around that 500 mark, which not great. Because you should be well above 500 in my opinion, but improvements. Like I said, January was good. They won 7 games. Again, weaker schedule. But you know what? You have to win those games too, and they were able to do it. So they've been playing a lot better lately. I said January was my make or break month. They did just enough for me to at least have a little bit of intrigue, but I'm still not bullish on this team at all. Because it's just... they have yet to show any remote thing that resembles consistency, in my opinion. I don't know. Where are you at? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of been a negative stigma podcast, but that's kind of where we're at with this team. You know what I mean? So I'm sure that you viewers, listeners, watchers out there are going to feel the same way, because it's just been like a cycle with this team where they go on a couple of games where they do well, and then they get you believing, and then they have a couple of stinkers, and then you say this team is the worst team in the league. And I just hope we start to see, like you said, 6 out of 8 to keep them afloat here. Beating the Florida Panthers would be nice with Sam Reinhart playing so well. That's always a big thing, is playing the guys that come back in here that didn't want to be here anymore, and hopefully beating them. But I'm with you. I just want to see some sort of consistency, and if moves have to be made, they have to be made. I'm not fine with them just standing pat anymore. Something's got to change here significantly. Coaching staff, forward group, defense. This group's not working. So no, that's kind of where I'm at.
Looking at last thing, I'll be looking at the standings, and this is just something it maybe people don't put a lot of stock into, but it's so frustrating. So the Sabres are in the wild card race. They're 7th. They have a -9 goal differential. Islanders have a -23 goal differential. The Devils -7, so obviously they're a little bit better. But the Capitals, who are 3 points ahead of the Sabres, -31 goal differential. The Canadians, who are tied with the Sabres, -39 goal differential. So it's it's inexplicable. Because it feels like when the Sabres lose, they get destroyed. But when they win, they look competent, like you said. So that's our thing, is there's no consistency. When they lose, they get hammered. When they win, they show some flashes of the team that we saw last year.
Or they got to come down from 2 goals.
Yeah, right. So I don't know. Like I said, I need to see. I'm not even asking for a playoff push for the rest of the year anymore. I'm just asking to be a consistent team that shows up on time. And from the coaching staff and the GM, show the fans something that says you still deserve to be here and be the ones to turn this thing around, because I've said it multiple times this year. There was so much goodwill built up last year by Granato and Adams, and they've wasted it in 49 games.
I think that's a good way to put a bow on it. That's basically where we're at. So
49 games, it's gone.
Yeah, results are going to matter, and they haven't for the Sabres through the first 49 games of this season. But hopefully by our next recording, maybe they take 8 of 8 points, and they're right back in this thing. But who knows? I'll be the eternal optimist here and blindly say that they're going to get 8 of 8, and then I'll look like an idiot come our next recording, and that's fine. But regardless, that's going to wrap up another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Proudly brought to you by JNL Flooring. If you're thinking of a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack. Contact our Niagara Falls location. Bring your quality flooring project today. Thank you to those today watching on the YouTube version of the podcast. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell. And for those listening to us rant today in on-demand audio, thank you very much for doing so and sitting through us doing this. And I'm sure you guys have been able to go through the pain with us with what has been a frustrating season for the Buffalo Sabres. But until next time, make sure to give us a follow at Sabres Semantics for our next show and updates on our Twitter polls as well. For Austin Broad, my name is Brandon Caputo, and we'll talk to you again very soon. You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.